It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at Red Giant number 3. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, the place for everyone who loves classic RPGs and anyone who'd like to learn more about them. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. And today, from 1981, this is Red Giant number 3. Hope you enjoy the video. Today we're continuing our look at Red Giant. This is a fanzine created in the United Kingdom. You can see here it's legal size paper. It is just plain white paper, not heavy stock, and then it's stapled down the side here. This one has a illustrated front cover. The back cover is just a page of text from one of the articles. Let's take a look at the cover art. It's signed here in the circle that's around this mind flayer. It looks to me like it says Shaine. I'm not really sure who that is. They don't give attribution inside of here to the art. The other thing that I think is interesting about this, you can see where it says price, and the original one was, or number 2 we did was 50 cents. It looks like, I'm guessing this one maybe was 50 cents, and then there's a sticker. And I actually have a couple of different copies of this issue, and they both have this little sticker stuck over top of that with a handwritten number 4 they went through and did on every single one of these issues apparently. Here's a closer look at this art. I like this art. This is super, super homebrew in my opinion. This is the kind of thing I think that you might have doodled in your notebook in school while you were bored with a teacher's lecture or something here of your mind flayer. You can see the brain sticking out, like it looks like a gem mounted in the center of its head. Pretty funky stuff. In terms of what we have inside, short editorial, some more discussions about the contest and subscriptions and so forth. Ghost, Ghoulies, and Long-Legged Beasties is New Monsters. Review, campaign construction, which is tips for a DM designing his or her own world. Martial arts in D&D. New spells, mysteries in magic. Magic items, Forester's Hut, which is a little drop-in set piece you could use in a D&D campaign. A review of Traveler, as well as a campaign adventure for Traveler, Seal Rock, which is a D&D coastal adventure, and then XS9, a Traveler solo adventure. In terms of who put this together, Toby Branfoot is the person primarily responsible. Haine, Andy Leach, Vaughn Froggatt, Noel Froggatt, Alex Kells, and C. Richards appear to be making contributions this time around. Here's our editorial. Welcome to issue 3. They sort of say this shows that we've sort of established ourselves, that we're going to survive. Hopefully we'll make it, they say, to at least issue 8. I think they make it to issue 7, so that's pretty close. They ask if this is a ripoff of the other Red Giant magazine, and they say, of course, it's not. They say this is chosen because of the Red Giant in astronomy from the star. And then they make some other ideas of how that might relate to different concepts in superhero game, top secret game, Traveler, etc. And they mention how they want to make sure they continue to cover games other than Dungeons and Dragons, although that remains a mainstay. They want to make sure they're sharing information about more games that are out there in the hobby, and they encourage people to contribute, and in particular to contribute if they have information, reviews, scenarios, or other things that could be used with one of these other types of role-playing games. He's not happy with the response to the competition. He says he only has 3 entries. He says, "Good, come on, people. I have more than 3 prizes to give away, so get some contributions in here." All right, New Monsters. Andy Leach has sent in the Ribbon Fly, and that's what this butterfly-looking creature is here. It's only 1 foot long, looks sort of like a butterfly with this long tail. Looks like ribbon. They basically, their wings can scintillate and create a hypnotic pattern like the spell, and they also have, while they whisper, they can have this stunning scream that will sort of hit everybody in a 20-foot radius and maybe stun them so that they can try to get away. The Spiker by Vaughn Froggatt. The Spiker is a jelly-like creature. It seems to be small because they talk about maybe it ends up wrapping itself around your hand, so pretty small. It's orange with some black spots that have, which is where little spikes can come out. They're parasitic. They need a host to survival, and they'll say they'll get onto your weapon, to your glove, to your hand, anything they can touch. They'll sort of hop a ride and try and get connected to some creature's, I guess, flesh at some point. Once it's there, it really adheres and you can't easily get it off. In fact, they say if it gets on a hand, which would be the most likely thing because you're exploring around maybe and you touch it, you're not going to be able to get it off. Whatever damage you do to the creature, you'll do the same amount of damage also to your hand. And so if you do more, it says, than 1/6 of your total hit points, that hand is going to end up being severed or busted to a pulp, I guess, if you're using blunt weapons. And they can also shoot these little spikes out if you're trying to like grab it and pry it off, and that'll do some damage to you as well. The next creature in here it's by Noel Froggatt, and this is the Rainbow Warrior. It's a mercenary fighter, but he tends to do a couple of things that make him or her stand out. They say these are extremely loyal mercenaries. As a point of honor, once they take on a task, they will not retreat from it. They'll fight to the death rather than abandon their charge. That's just sort of a point of honor among their clan or their people. The Rainbow Warrior tends to be pale yellow, glow in the dark. Hair is usually dyed some bright color, such as red or yellow. The clothing will also be often bright and covered with sequins, and they can the sequins can cause a flashing display. If you're in light, that will sort of disorient somebody and help lower their armor class when they're in melee combat. So there we go. Mage, a review of yet another fantasy role-playing system. This is by Alex Kells. He explains a little bit about this Archeron game system. This is supposedly a magic system you can use in other role-playing games. This guy basically says he takes a pass on that. While it's interesting, he doesn't find it to be new, and says he doesn't think, other than D&D, it probably would fit in very well with other games that are out there. Here's a very interesting article. This is part 3 in the campaign construction series. As he says, issue 1 had one that talked about why you should be creating your own campaign. 2 talked about how to populate your world and map your world. And now we're going to talk about how you put scenarios into there. His view is you have 2 types of campaigns you run, the ongoing campaign and the finite campaign. The ongoing campaign is the one that goes on, where you maybe are using adventures from Dragon Magazine or fanzines or your own creation or TSR modules, etc., etc. And he says the obvious problem with that is if you just grab random adventures from different authors, you can feel that in your campaign, and you lose a little bit of the narrative sense that your characters live in a real world when these adventures all have a different feel to them. The finite campaign is one that has obviously a start and a finish, but it has a story to it. It's basically, I think, the way he thinks of that. And there's a theme, and he says, again, there can be 2 different types of themes. There can be sort of the obvious theme or the hidden theme. The obvious theme is like, hey, Gandalf comes to see you, says you got to go help these guys retake their homeland, or maybe you got to take this ring and throw it in Mount Doom. You know what you're supposed to do, and then you go out, and obviously you have lots of encounters and challenges and so forth, but you know the overall mission of what you're trying to do. That can also be parsed out into little pieces. So maybe you have a series of finite adventures. And maybe, if you're extra sophisticated, there's also an unknown theme that drives each of those known, smaller, finite goals. But you don't learn about that until, maybe much later in the overall campaign adventure. So I think his ideas are pretty good. I like that idea of the theme of keeping that in mind. Is that how you're going to do this? He gives you some examples from his home campaign. He's a big fan of the finite, and he says you certainly, at least from time to time, you're going to have to give your character some pretty obvious goals. Otherwise, they just sort of flounder around, and you've done all this design work and you've got all this stuff 10 kilometers to the east, but your characters keep wanting to go west, where you don't have any ideas set up over there, and so that's potentially a problem. He's a big fan of the rumor table, and it tells you that you should think of lots of rumors that tie back into whether they're hidden or obvious themes in your world, rather than trying to just randomly throw up an NPC to try and give your players information that will, he says, seem pretty transparent, in terms of for your characters. Oh, you're trying to basically tell me I need to go east, right? Because this guy keeps coming and telling me, hey, you should go to this other town or whatever. I guess I think that makes sense. So that's his idea. There's also a note here about Traveler and the idea that there's something that they've put out recently that had some scenario ideas, and he says, only a couple of pounds smaller, but lots of good some locations, some rumors. He said this is the kind of thing they could have done more of with the Village of Hamlet. They could have done more of these little smaller, cheaper priced ideas rather than full-blown, 30-page adventure modules, I guess is what he's thinking. Andy Leach has this article on martial arts. I like it. He basically has you roll up a stat. If you have strength of 9, intelligence of 11, and dexterity of 15, you can choose to learn martial arts. Roll d12, subtract 1 for each of your intelligence points over 16. That is how many months you'll have to go off and study. And then you'll get a 3d6 roll, and you'll get a score from 3 to 18. If you get an 18, it has your roll percentile dice like you did for strength, and that determines your martial art ability, how much of a master you've become. That'll give you an armor class adjustment, a number of hand kick attacks per round, damage per attack, chance to disarm if that's what you choose to do. You can try to disarm, take the weapon out of somebody's hands, chance to stun somebody with your strikes, and a bonus to hit. The only thing I don't like about that roll is it's sort of all or nothing, right? So I might think maybe you roll each of those separately, because gosh, if you're lucky, you become very, very good at martial arts, and somebody else does all the same things, same abilities, same study time. They roll poorly, their martial arts are worthless. So anyway, but it's simple. It's super simple. You would just write these, scores or adjustments or whatever it is down on your character sheet, and then you just have martial arts and you just use that instead of a weapon. No armor, no shields, and no other weapons in your hands. So it does have definitely a penalty to have you try to use some martial arts. A couple new spells here, I think 3 in total. Slip makes a surface completely slick, and he has a chance that you're going to slip and fall and mess up your combat, mess up spells. Lots of clever uses for that. It's a 3rd level magic user spell. It has a reverse called stick, which causes extreme friction, slows you down. I think if you were running and you suddenly hit the stick section, you'd probably have a chance of falling as well, right? Because anytime you have a change in friction when a running surface, it cause you to lose your balance. Dance is used not on a person, but on a weapon, and you cast a spell and you touch the sword, the mace, whatever it is, and it should be a normal weapon, and it becomes a +1 weapon the first round, a +2 weapon the second round, all the way up to +5, and then it comes back down and it'll dance, on its own and attack for you. But then once it falls to the ground, it will be a normal weapon, and that's, as I say, why you want to use a normal weapon, because the spell as written says if it's enchanted to start with, it loses its enchantment as a result of being subjected to this spell. Probably think you should give a magic weapon a saving throw for that, but in any event, that's how it's written. And finally, telepathy, which is exactly what it means. You touch somebody and you gain a permanent telepathic link, and that's great. Now, if the other person is killed, you get stunned because of the mental shock of that, but otherwise it allows you to communicate. That's pretty powerful, actually, if you think about it, because you could use it, back in town before you start your adventure, and months later, you're still enjoying the benefits of it. Noel Froggatt has some new magic items. The waste paper basket is odd. You write on a piece of paper and toss it in there. If someone goes in the basket and opens it up, if you write a command, they'll be obligated to perform that command. So, the command might be, go jump out the window. And if you read that, then you go jump out the window. Seed packets, enchanted seeds. I like that kind of idea generally. He's got 4 different ones of different colors and sizes. One will grow magical shoes. Seems random. The other one grows coins, like coins and money grows on trees. It'll grow gold and silver coins that'll pop out instead of fruit, I guess. One produces a shambling mound when it grows, and the other produces a treant. I like those last 2. They're pretty clever. Quell Rain's magical quill. This guy he was losing his sight, and he wanted a magician to give him a quill that he could have write for him when he was no longer able to see. They messed up the enchantment, and instead, I'm tinkering this just a little, I would say it draws a monster, and then that monster appears. I think his story is just as it started to draw, a monster appeared and killed them. But I like the idea that it draws a monster, whatever you want to create, maybe something unique, an original monster. And then that thing just sort of animates and pulls up off the page, becomes three-dimensional and attacks you. Supposed to be very scary, should be something that has the risk of killing whoever it was that found and used the quill. The flask of drinking is a semi-cursed item. It doesn't do any ill effects, but once you start drinking, you have to finish it, and that'll occupy you. It says 4 turns. That seems a long time for a flask. And finally, the sugar mouse is a little edible that's made in the shape of a mouse, and its consequence is that once you eat it, you'll be surrounded by cats, and they will follow you around incessantly, scratching at you, just harassing you basically for an unknown period of time. C. Richards has a drop-in called the Forester's Hut. It's a little hut, gives you the forester, his wife, and children. She's sick, so there's a chance for a good character to do something nice, and they'll be very helpful to you if you do that. Their forester is very well known by the elves that live in these woods, and so if you are a bad party member and you either kill them or steal from them, the elves will find out about it, and then they will come after you en masse. And that could be as many as 4d6 elves. And they throw in some unicorns and centaurs and just really like beat the tar out of the party if they're not nice to these people. Here's his review of Traveler. He talks about the Black Box, Mark Millar's game, the 3 books. He thinks it's excellent, very well done sci-fi game. He tells you a little bit about how it works, encourages you to get it. He says there's books 4 and 5 you can get that give you more detail about the life of an Army member, and I think as a Navy member, if that's going to be your original career. He says he thinks those are optional, but if you love this game, he said then go ahead and get those because they're going to be really good. Then to help you out, Tim Haine has a adventure in this article called Walkover on Warden, but there's no vowels at the end. But anyway, that's it. And this guy comes and gets you. He says he creates robots. His janitorial robot was sent into some pipes to clean them, and he's been lost. If you go get him, he'll give you a reward and fly you on his spaceship to wherever it is you want to go next. He doesn't tell you that he designs combat robots, and so this is actually a combat robot that's been lost. And so you're going to go find it. It's going to be in the middle of trying to wipe out some bad guys, and you could potentially get caught up in that combat as well. Seal Rock is a D&D adventure for you. It's a coastal adventure involving a tribe of Sahagin, I believe is the name. I think those were created by Steve Marsh back in the early days. So Seal Rock is a number of islands here, and this particular Seal Rock, I think, there's a volcanic eruption that's created this area, and there's some interaction with the lava. The Sahagin connect to people on the abyssal plane or hell, and that's why they won't leave, even though the villagers keep trying to get rid of them. And you've been hired to go out there to the rock and sort of clear these guys out. So it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty well done. If you go out here, here's your, you get onto the island. You can see these little cluster. This was a village that was taken over by the Sahagin. And so you go in there, you can check out those buildings. Some of them are occupied, some of them are not, but pretty, just basically pretty straightforward. It's going to be a search, sneak, attack, kill kind of campaign here as you work your way through these creatures. And finally, we have XS9, a traveler solo adventure, which is essentially a pick your own path. So you read paragraph 1. If you do this, turn to this number. If you do that, turn to that number, and you just play your way through this traveler campaign. So that's it for Red Giant number 3, the next in our Fanzine series. As I mentioned, there are 7 of these, so we'll take a look at the remaining ones of those in the weeks ahead. Hope you all enjoyed today's video. Hope you enjoy this series, and I hope you're subscribed. If you have friends who would like our content, please send them our way. We're still trying to grow our community. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. And until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.